Predator Badlands is the latest movie in the Predator franchise, this time making the Predator himself the main character. We follow a Yautja named Dek, who is yet to go on his first hunt, and is also considered the weakest member of his clan. Dek must now set out to the most dangerous planet known to man in search of a big dangerous creature, hoping to prove his honor and worthiness to his clan. And that's all. Pretty much not any spoilers, you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. Predator Badlands. The Predator franchise has had a big turnaround recently. I was only about 2 years into the YouTube reviewing game whenever The Predator came out back in 2018, directed by Shane Black, and I had such high hopes for that movie, and I thought it would be the big return to form, but it was such a letdown, and honestly so bad that it turned me off to the franchise, where I was like, I don't know if I really want to see another Predator movie now. Then came in Dan Trachtenberg. He gave us Prey, that debuted on Hulu, should have gone to theaters, but whatever the case, he brought the franchise back to its roots and delivered a really awesome Predator movie, an animated Predator film that debuted on Hulu, and that was awesome, looking at 3 different Predators in different time periods, going after warriors on Earth, while also expanding the Yautja lore in the end of that film, and giving us some more insight into what they do with the people who actually defeat Predators. And now with this third film here, Badlands, which is like the most different out of any Predator film we've ever seen, because it's finally putting the Predator as the main character. It's really such a risky move, and from the trailers you see how different it's going to be from previous Predator movies, so I just went in hoping that this risky new approach would actually pay off. So I'm sitting there watching the movie, having it all unfold, and bro, I was the point thinking several times, this might be my favorite Predator movie ever made. Now I say that and I'm not ready to commit to that thought just yet, but I also think diehard Predator fans might actually not be as high on it for a couple of the risky things this film decides to do. But let me go into the things I really love. Dude, you can tell Dan Trachtenberg is a Predator fan. Not only did he bring the franchise back to form with Prey, which follows the same formula that happened all the way back in the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. You have a group of skilled warriors, a Predator shows up, starts hunting them down one by one, and then you have a final showdown between the Predator and the main character, and like with most Predator films, Predator usually loses. And putting the animated Predator film aside, as far as live action movies goes, I was just like, man, the Yautjas are such interesting, fascinating creatures. These species of aliens that all they want to do is just hunt, collect trophies as skulls, all this tech, their code. Like, there is so many interesting things to them. If we continue to just follow that formula, it'll get so repetitive and boring fast. Sure, it'll be cool to see them fight samurais, cowboys, or any other soldier in our time period, and I think the animated Predator movie was able to scratch that itch for us, but again, that only lets us go so far with the Yautjas. This approach, I think, was so needed in the franchise and really paid off. Because right off the bat, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, you were kind of hit with this whiplash, where I'm used to the movie taking 40 minutes before they even reveal the Predator is somewhere to be seen. We got to meet a bunch of human characters, their motives, their skills, and then that alien fool comes showing up and blasting them away. No, right away, you meet Dek. They're speaking in their alien tongue. You're also seeing them act more human, where they're not even in fight mode. They're just like walking around their ship, having a regular conversation, and you're like, this is so different. What is going on? I didn't think we'd be here. And well, I guess speaking on Dek, having him as the main character, I honestly really enjoyed him. Like I said, I've always been so fascinated with the Yautjas and just their species, so getting to spend an entire movie just watching them even do the most mundane human thing, I thought was just so fun. I was afraid it would like peel back too much of the mystery or make them uninteresting once you actually get to spend that time. You know, it's kind of like the cool kid in school where you're like, man, I wish he'd invite me over to his house, and then you do, and like all you do is just sit in bed and he talks about his Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and you're like, you're not as cool as I thought you were, dude. Don't know if that analogy works, but in that sense is what I was afraid of. It's like, oh, I'd love to spend more time with the Yautja, see what they're like or what they are, and you get that in this movie a lot, and you think maybe it's like, oh, they're not as cool as I really like Dek. If they want to hinge a franchise on his shoulders and carry a film series where he continues to be the main Yautja we follow, yeah, I'd be down for that. And those first 5 to 10 minutes also so perfectly set up the motives and who the Yautja are that this is a film perfectly built to be someone's first Predator movie. While I do recommend you go back and familiarize yourself with the franchise, it's not needed. Everything you need to know about the Predators as a species and Deck's motives for this film are all laid out within the first 5-10 minutes, and that lets us go straight into the action, because another thing I think Dan Trachtenberg does really well with the Predator is just gets so creative. This idea of the movie entirely taking place on a planet called Jenna, which is supposed to be the most dangerous planet everywhere. This is a planet where every little thing is just built to kill you. From little bugs, big birds, giant monsters, like every corner you turn, the forest itself is trying to attack you and kill you. And that in itself just made for an awesome area to explore, and it was so fun seeing Deck so determined to not only just go after this one creature, but have to evade all the dangers within the jungle. Dan Trachtenberg gets so creative with the alien creatures, the plant life, and everything within it, you actually start to really get Star Wars vibes. I remember when I was seeing some of the first reactions for the movie, and they were really comparing it to The Mandalorian, and I was like, oh, maybe that's just because, you have the Predator carrying the synthetic robot around, maybe like Grogu, but no, you're watching this and you get major Star Wars vibes, and I mean that complimentary. There's a lot of great species and things to be explored that I think just complement the Predator and who they are. Another thing I think Dan Trachtenberg takes advantage of is using Weyland-Yutani and this expanded universe to tell its story. A lot of us went crazy when we saw Ella Fanning was playing a synthetic robot. She actually plays 2 in this movie. And while yes, there's a part of us going, well, Disney now owns Alien and the Predator. Are they going to build up to a little versus movie again and do something cool? I don't even want to keep that part mysterious or get your expectations set up in the wrong way to think that, because even the creatives have said in interviews, do not expect xenomorphs or things like that in this movie. And I'm loving that that's happening. Dan Trachtenberg took something that exists within this universe, Weyland-Yutani, their synthetics, their androids, their motives as a company to do research on dangerous creatures and animals, all for the company's interest, and found a way to fit that into a Predator story where it doesn't feel like a nostalgia bait thing, an Easter egg thing, or a callback, or it's like, hey, you remember Predator? How about the alien? Yeah, huh? No, like it complements the story nicely, and there's some good conflict there with the Yautja, and I think it's even interesting that within the movie they explain Weyland-Yutani is aware of Yautjas. Another thing I also absolutely loved about the movie is its action set pieces. I think a lot of stuff was hidden from the trailers, and that's something we just don't see very often. I think now when I was doing, my research prepping for this review and all that, I'm seeing there's been a lot more clips and TV spots that are giving away more and more stuff, but as someone who was watching most of the big trailers, there were a lot of action scenes, creatures, monsters, and plot points entirely hidden from the trailers, and that also made it such a fun ride for me, because while yes, the plot I gave you about this movie where Deck is just trying to go to this dangerous planet, hunt this big unkillable creature and prove himself, that is the main motivation. But there are twists and turns along the way, story direction deviates a little bit, and all of that was so fun to see unfold and made the film feel a little unpredictable for me. So I like that they hid that, along with, like I was saying, there's a lot of action scenes in here. I was trying to look up what the budget of this movie was, because this definitely feels like the most expensive Predator film ever built, and the closest thing I could find is that maybe it has about $100 million budget, and that surprised me. There's a lot of alien CGI creatures done very well. I mean, even just the prosthetic mixed with the CGI work on the main Predator Deck, he looked really great all throughout the movie. Same with a lot of the VFX for the rest of the film. There's a couple of like wonky moments, but all of it I think is still really good looking. And while $100 million compared to like bigger comic book films or anything like that might not seem like that big of a deal, it kind of is for Predator. I was looking back at their box office history, and as awesome as Predators are and as big of a fan base as they have, they are not giant money makers at the box office. The most a solo Predator movie has ever made opening weekend, $24 million. I mean, to even put that in perspective for you, Black Phone 2 that just recently came out, that opened to $27 million opening weekend. And stuff like that just surprised me, because I think of Predator as such a big franchise, but it's funny to see, I guess it's kind of niche. So it is funny seeing a lot of the fans who complain whenever Disney got the rights to Predator, when I think what they've been doing so far has been some of the best Predator stories we have gotten in a while. But just getting back to it here, I think again, the thing that surprised me the most is how wildly different this movie feels compared to all the other Predator films, but still works. Sometimes you do the genre pivot within a franchise and it does not work. Look at Megan just recently. That went from a horror movie that turned into a straight up action comedy, and they suffered because of it. While there has always been action and small adventure elements within the Predator, it has been a horror survival franchise where you follow human characters, they're put in a situation, and there's this otherworldly being trying to kill them. Here, no, it's a sci-fi adventure movie, much more feeling like Star Wars than anything to do with like a survival horror movie. And that genre pivot, like I said, might be a little troublesome for some diehard fans to get used to, but there's more things in there that they might not love that they did in this movie. So now moving on to the things I'm mixed to negative about, there's a couple of things, and they're really divided into two categories. There's one, I think, just the movie criticisms at itself, and then two, the things that fans I think are going to be really flinching at with this movie. So starting with just the movie complaints, well, I think the movie has a great rapid pace. Like I said, the first 5 to 10 minutes set up Deck's motivations, who the Predator are as a species, what they value, and then jumping you into this crazy planet where he has a mission to accomplish. All that pacing goes so well, and you're constantly being shown new plants, new creatures. It's also exciting. In the middle of the movie, there is a bit of a dip. And in that dip, I was starting to wonder, dang, is it losing its steam? Is it now going in a way where it's like it's not working as much anymore? We have overstayed our welcome with the Yautja and these other characters we've met along the way. No, because I would say by the third act, everything picks up. It continues to pivot in its story and its direction, and that made it really fun. So luckily, the third act not only goes off strong, it ends strong, but it does have a dip in the middle of the movie. Also, Ella Fanning, I think her character is going to take some warming up to, where a lot of people are going to be coming out of the movie slightly annoyed with her. I know I was a bit annoyed with her for the first couple of minutes she was introduced, and once I got kind of used to her personality and the humor she was bringing to the story, I grew to like her a little bit more. But I think there will be some people not able to warm up to her and just be like, someone needs to shut up that robot because it just talks too much. And on the other side of that, the other synthetic that Ella Fanning plays, this synthetic is a little bit more menacing and has some conflict with Deck in the movie, and some of that conflict I found really cool and really awesome. I was like, okay, I see what they're doing there, and there's even parallels they're making with synthetics and Yautjas. I'm like, all right, I like that. But then there were other parts of it where it just wasn't working for me as much, and I was like, all right. So always to say, Ella Fanning's both synthetics, I think, will probably be some people's least favorite part of the movie. Segueing us a little bit more into the fan complaints, I think if you're a diehard fan that really liked the dark, rated R, bloody tone that Predator is known for, this does crank it up a lot lighter. That's where it feels most Disney-fied, where I feel like this could be a Predator movie you watch with the family. You take the 10-year-olds, you see this film, you have a blast with it, really. Little Susie's enjoying it, and if they're selling little Yautjas in Walmart, oh, little Timmy's gonna want to pick up one in a ship and a little knife and all that. Like, this does feel like the Predator movie that's gonna make the most toys, that isn't just bought by a bunch of grown men who remember the Predator movie from the earlier days, but this will be the Predator film to feed a younger generation, because it does have a little bit more focus on the humor, and this one being PG-13, although it's still very violent, and like I said, there's some really cool action set pieces. When that violence and bloodshed is done, it is alien creatures or robots, so the violence doesn't feel as heavy, but the violence is still there. There'll also be a couple of alien creatures that, you know, get treated like cute cuddly things. That's again where I think maybe they're leaning towards the merchandise stuff of like, we could make stuffed animals of that alien. That again will annoy some of the diehard fans who like the darker, gritty adult tone. But I think it's more of some of the pivoting or things they do with the Yautja himself, Deck, that I guess if you're just really a diehard fan and you're not too open-minded to exploring these characters more and the lore within them, you will be upset where things go with his character, I think, towards the end of the film. I honestly just kind of being a real big enjoyer of Predator, but I'm not going to say I'm like a diehard fan. I was never one to dive too deep into like the comics, the expanded novels, and all these things, but there's so much stuff of that where fans do, and it feels like Dan Trachtenberg is a fan of that stuff because it feels like he was pulling from some of that stuff to help with this movie, but it does at times make you, you know, want to turn away from everything you do know about the Yautja and be more open-minded to, to a less strict version of what you've known before in previous movies, all to make this story possible. Now, again, this doesn't completely fundamentally change everything you know in the Predator universe. Deck is very much being built up as a one-of-a-kind Predator, mainly because he is set up as this runt, a Predator who was born smaller, weaker, and is, again, kind of the main reason he wants to prove himself. But he's definitely being treated as a unicorn character, so although you might not be too happy where they take his character and what ends up happening with him, I do think it doesn't, ruin the Predator franchise or make you go, oh great, now that all Predators are going to be like this. It's like, no, it's a very special condition for certain reasons that the movie did earn. I will say it earned the changes it's made, but I think if you like your Yautjas a certain way, you might not be happy with the direction they take this one. But honestly, that's the cost to having this franchise do something new, and this direction that they're heading in, I want to see more. There is a little mid-credits scene that happens as soon as the movie's over that hints to where the story could go next, and it is definitely a spot that we have yet to explore in the Predator franchise, so yeah, let's see where that goes. I think the series from here on out, if successful, is going to look so different than the Predator movies we've had before, but I think it's time for a change. There's so many interesting things you could do with the Yautjas, and to see that finally get explored, I thought was pretty cool. So when it comes to Predator Badlands, I'm going to give action 4 stars. There is a lot of cool action scenes in here. You get plenty of Yautjas fighting different aliens and creatures, trying to escape, but not just that, you actually see him as a hunter a lot, and I love when you actually see the Predators be hunters. Comedy in the movie, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. There's some decent jokes thrown in there, but I hope if this continues on, we don't lean more into the comedy. Because to me, with this one, they were already almost at the line of too comedic. So for the next film, I wouldn't mind if it was a little less funny, but it's there, and some people are going to find it fine, and some people will get a chuckle out of it. Drama in the film, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I really like the story direction. It's pretty simple. I think you understand who Deck is as a character, his motives, and you really feel for him. You get attached to him, and that attachment, I think, really helps with some of the different things they do with him as the movie goes on. But admittedly, this probably is the simplest story of all Dan Trachtenberg's Predator films. The world building does make up, though, for a lot of that simple story. Suspense the movie, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Again, like I said, I think they hit a lot of action and plot points from the trailer that actually made the movie pretty fun to watch, because I thought I knew where everything was headed, and then something started changing. I was like, oh, okay, wasn't expecting all this. Horror in the film, I'll give 1.5 stars to. Yeah, this is probably the least horrified Predator movie. It's the least bloody, while there is still tons of violence and bloodshed. Because of it being alien creatures and robots, it does lose that impact a bit. When it comes to the 3 C's, casual fans will easily be able to jump into this, although I will say if this is your first Predator movie, you will probably love it, but it'll set the wrong expectations for the past Predator movies where they're just probably not going to hit the same if this is your first one. But to me, it'll most be cinephiles for the great action scenes, the lore building, and different things they do with the Yautjas. It's for sure trying to more... It's a more proper franchise setup for the Predators than the past films have been, and that's for better or worse, because there are some corporizations in here, but a lot of great story, but a lot of cool story potential. So overall with Predator Badlands, I'm seriously considering this being my favorite Predator movie of the bunch. That tells you something. It's a blast and makes me excited for what other stories they could tell, so it's not just worth watching in theaters, it's also worth adding to your personal collection.
That's a keeper. Yes.
Again, I hope I'm kind of wrong whenever this movie comes out and I start seeing reactions from the more diehard Predator fans about some of the slight pivots they decide to make. I'd like to think they're open-minded and willing to see where things go, but we've had a lot of Predator fans just complaining over female characters. Feels like they get mad about any little thing. I mean, people were pissed at just Deck's design, which, yeah, wasn't awesome, but there was a story purpose for it, and I think his character is pretty cool once you watch the movie. So we'll see. I think I'm definitely going to want to do a spoiler video because there's so many things I want to dive into specifically that I thought the movie did great. Throwing it off to you guys, though. Let me know your thoughts on Predator Badlands if you got to see it, or if you're planning to go see it. Would love it too. Your favorite Predator movie. Anything, everything. Be sure and like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.